Time to get this thing animated. Also, time to not be so loud for myself. Holy hell, my microphone is very, very loud today. Okay, before we get to that though, I was just working on his materials a little bit. Fixing up my parent material for my enemies. Because I used to have, and I still do have, this material, which I made ages ago before I started using Substance Painter for my texturing. Where the roughness and the metallicness are separate input maps, and I don't have even like any ambient occlusion on this, which are grayscale. But obviously with Substance, it actually packs those into a combined like occlusion, roughness, metallicness texture. So I'm just making a real quick black placeholder. There we go. I'm just making a super quick new one. As we go along, I expect most of the characters that have been made with like blender textures to at some point be redone in Substance anyway. So I'll probably like eventually have everything on this parent material. Maybe some of them will stay the way they are. I don't know for sure yet. But we'll see as we go along, I suppose. Though I must say that this like default setting for the roughness isn't ideal. But we're always gonna like just provide in a texture for that, so it's probably not that big a deal. So now we have that. We have the enemy material with packed textures instead, and I can provide in the textures we want to have, and then we can go back into Blender, add in some bones, and then go back into Unreal and have this as a skeletal mesh finally. But all that I need to do now is set this base color. This is on my second monitor, you can't see that, I'm sorry about that. Add in the normal map and then the ORM. So yeah, this is the packed texture that Substance creates, right? So if we just check the red channel, you can see that this is the, I think this is the ambient occlusion. If we just check the green channel, this will be the roughness, and then this is the metallicness map, I am pretty sure. And then the alpha doesn't have anything in it. You could obviously add in something in the alpha if you wanted to, but we won't. So we have that as a material now, so we can set that material for the spirits over there, and then that's actually a fantastic point. That's gonna be kind of not great looking, maybe. I don't know. We obviously want this to just start at 1, but if we like fade this out, you can see like my paint job below the mask is kind of rough. So maybe I'll tidy that up at some point. I do kind of like that this is purely coincidental, but I do kind of like that the mask fades out first. That's the thing that we could do as well, right? We could just mess around a little bit with the UVs of the noise texture to maybe make it so that the head fades out first, so that this doesn't become an issue. But I think I'll just like improve the paint job on it at some point. But that's not super important for right now. Just as a thing I was doing, and then I was like, it's time to go stream already. So here we are. Back in Blender. There we go. This is going to be a super easy thing to do. We can just call this like Spirit Wisp, I think is what I call it. Whips. Wisp. Let's call it Mesh. This cube. What is this cube even at this point? Nothing important, I don't think. So let's add in our armature. So we're gonna start this off as a single bone. Move this up a little bit. The single bone is going to be relatively small. It's going to be the root bone. So call that root. And then from there, we just extrude out in its local Y. And we make sure that we, in viewport display, have this in front. We disconnect bone. Side view. What is... Oh, it's going along its normal. No, no, no. We want to... Well, local. Local is fine. And we kind of just like put this in here and then just make a single chain all the way to its tail. Let me actually open up the chat. Because hello, people are indeed in chat. So yeah, from here I think it literally is just as easy as like just doing this a little bit. And making sure that this has enough bones, because I have a real tendency to not add enough bones. So matter of fact, let's just... Well, this doesn't need to have 2 bones, right? This would be fine as 1 bone. This probably is fine as 1 bone. I think starting with this, just like subdividing, that doesn't work. What the hell? There we go. Just like subdividing this to have double the amount of bones is probably fine. So with that, let's temporarily turn off the deform bone for the root. And then we can just parent with automatic weights. Hope that that's good enough. Probably pretty good, right? Still something parented to the root bone. That sucks. Okay, we do need to clean up a little bit here. But that shouldn't be that big a deal. Let's go into object mode again. And then weight paint, and then we'll just go through and see. I don't even think I need to like hook up my like tablet for this at all. This might be a tricky bone that we need to like look at a little bit. Root, no, oh, hold on. Let's just like Control Z through all this real quick, because we have one like too many bones in here. Let's dissolve that bone. Still gonna need to probably touch up the weight painting even after that fix. But we can try again. It still's kind of parenting to that. That's weird. It shouldn't. Oh well. We can just go through a root weight paint mode and just say, hey, don't do that. You don't have anything. Let's call this head. That seems pretty good, to be honest, aside from the fact that it definitely needs to like take the horns with it 100%. Maybe a little bit of the neck as well, who knows. This needs to like not influence the horns at all. And maybe it could do with having a little bit of like influence on the body here. I don't know, maybe that's gonna end up being bad, but we'll see. And this, the other way around, probably has a real good reason to like have a bit of influence on this. And then starting here, I think all of these are pretty good. That makes sense. You need to not be doing anything with the head. At all. Like, at all. At least not with, like, the front of the head, which we have a word for. Face. Let's call it face. But aside from that, everything does seem, like, pretty good to go with the automatic weights, which makes me very happy because I was afraid that was going to take a while. But this is that's probably good enough. And this, yeah, that needs a little bit more work. Like this bone, what is it called? Because we can just do, that'll be neck 2. And this will be neck 1. Neck 2 definitely needs like some influence on the rest of this. Like to the point where I think what we just do is we just like select everything here and say didn't I just call one of these neck 2? Maybe I didn't. Let's go back through and just make sure. Oh, I might have renamed the bone, but that doesn't rename the... That sucks. Let's make sure that these are named the same. Doesn't actually seem to matter. I thought it did. Thought it just got it by name, but maybe once it's been linked, it's good to go. Or maybe not. Yeah, it definitely does it by name because now this, yeah, there we go. Okay. This is called neck 1, but that should be a capital N. See, that works fine. It's just this that also needs to like, okay. So neck 2. Go back into Armature. We still have those things selected, and we can just assign those weights like that. And now still doesn't. Why don't you work the way I want you to work? Anyway. Yeah, so neck 2 is now, I guess because it's also parented to neck 1. I guess neck 1 actually like has no reason to have all this parented to it. So we can just kind of like significantly decrease this. That's probably a bit better. See, the issue is that this now, it still isn't parented to that bone though. What the fuck is going on with my life? Am I going insane? This is supposed to move with that bone. It's got a weight of 1. But it's not. Is it parented to any other like weird-ass bones that are keeping it in place? No. So then what the fuck is going on here? Because neck 2 definitely is moving there. Right, that is neck 2. I'm not neck 2. Oh. Capital N neck. Yeah, no, still doesn't do it. Did I mistype anything in here? Neck 2. N-E CK2. Yeah, no, that's correct, man. So what the fuck is up? It moves with this. It doesn't move with that. Doesn't move with that. Yeah, so it doesn't move with any of those, clearly. It seems like this is the only bone that it's moving with, but that makes absolutely no sense because this is the head. Okay. Let's do this differently. Because it's already broken. So let's clear the parent. And actually name these bones before we do anything else, right? So we've got like this neck 2. Now we'll call this tail 1. Tail 2. Tail 3. Tail 4. Tail 5. Tail 6. Tail 7. Tail 8. Tail 9. Tail 10. And tail 12. Obviously tail 11. Take all these fucking things, get them the hell out of here. Try again. Parent with automatic weights. Immediately go in with object mode. And, well, we'll actually call this thing Spirit Wisp. And then in object mode, we go in, root, make sure that it is weight painted to not have any weights on anything. Am I crazy, or did I just not go into like root bone and set it to not being? Oh, I didn't do that. Okay, that makes sense. That's my problem. It's a me issue. Head, pretty good. Once again, doing this with a mouse feels weird, man. I probably should just hook up my tablet at this point, but I don't know. Here we are. Then neck 1, I wanted to not have the horns in there. Probably not have this in there as much. Probably actually, hold on. Probably do this with, yeah, symmetry. That makes a lot more sense to do. Okay. I'm losing my mind. I don't have a neck 2. What the fuck? Did I call that just tail 1? Did I just... I think I called neck 2 tail 1. No. This is called neck 2. I don't have a neck 2. What? What? I don't have a group for neck 2? Why? I'll just fucking add it. Why did it not make one? What the fuck? That's weird, man. I don't know what's up with that. Let's decrease this a bit, though. Let's see how this goes. That's pretty deep. Well, obviously that's going to do everything. We'll probably need to make this one a little bit less influenced by a lot of these bones. But we're getting there. Anyway, how's everybody doing today? Working on your own stuff? Making good progress with your own stuff? Hopefully you are. Can we... think we can just make this go bye-bye for a moment. Doing good. That's good to hear. Okay. Yeah, that goes bye-bye. So that will make everything here like just 100%. Something is like a little fucky in this. I don't know what it is. It might just be part of the thing. Switching you in the side. That's what I'm here for. That's cool. Modeling a block bench. That sounds... What are you making? Working on my own stuff, but I'm an idiot, so progress is optional. I mean, that's the story of my life, man. Ain't that the truth? As evidenced by everything that just happened with, like, the whole weight paint stuff here. It's still being influenced somewhere that I don't want it to be influenced, and I don't know which group is doing it. Has to be like neck 1, but not. Oh, it's the head. It's the head. The head is influencing it. Don't want the head to influence this at all either. Retro looking low poly shooter and E5. Sounds cool. I'm not much of a shooter guy, but like still. Sounds cool. There's some wiggliness in the face there that I probably need to like take. I just need this to be more influenced by bone, like neck 2, and then I probably just need the top there to be less influenced by it, to be honest with you. That might be what we need to do. First and foremost though, like this neck 1, also take it back. I can take it back, man. Even less influence. And then neck 2 is getting more influence in the fronts. This is going to be the like only... This is probably good enough. This is going to be the only like tricky part today, because once we get into Unreal, it's going to be like pretty easy, I think. Everything that we need to do. So let's edit mode, unhide this, and now hide that. Yeah, let's not think about the way that that's weight painted too much. That is horrendous. Maybe give it a little more though. Might make it clip through again, but we'll see. Maybe just blur it out a little. It's not even like remotely symmetrical. Let's just paint it in. The thing I care most about is the influence we have from the tail bits on this. I think we should decrease that a little bit. Well, that's really only the one tail bit that has influence on this. Watching your content for a long while now. Welcome. Or thank you. If you've been here for a while, welcome is maybe not the right word. Currently working on state tree stuff, but enjoying the turn-based combat for the game I'm working on. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the turn-based combat system. I developed it for my own game as well, because there's going to be like one segment that's turn-based combat. So I spent like 3 weeks developing and refining that. First for like the tutorial series, and then also with the idea in mind that I would use it in my own game. So I made a first draft, and then I refined that, and then I recorded the tutorial series in which I changed a couple of things around on the go. And now I rewrote the entire thing again in C++. I've written this entire system like 3 or 4 times. But I'm pretty happy with the way that turn-based system like works for the most part. It's probably like one of my favorite things I've made in the last couple of years on YouTube. State trees are nice, man. I really like them. To the point where I'm like, I don't know if I would ever like actually use a behavior tree like at all. There's certainly like reasons to use behavior trees still, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, like, man, if I want to do something, I want to do a behavior tree, I might as well just do a state tree, right? Because it does the same and more. I think the weights for these are pretty good now. Will you do, or do you know any state tree tutorials for strategy-esque tile-based games, specifically AI decision-making process for strategy game through blueprinting? So what you would effectively probably need to do is make a sort of querying system. Like an implementing that with state tree is kind of like a separate issue. Like you can make that in state tree or just in blueprint or whatever. But the idea would be that you have a list of like all the tiles that are relevant to a given actor. And then you would score all of those tiles based on a variety of criteria. And then with a degree of randomness, most likely, pick the entry with the highest score. Again, with a little bit of randomness to it. So the way you would probably do that is if you have like 10 different tiles that you could move to, there's going to be 12, but pretend like these are the same size. If we have like all of them scored to a certain, so this only gets 1 point because it's in a bad position. This has 3 points because it's in a pretty good position. This might have like 6 points. This has 12 points, whatever. You then effectively just use those as weights. So first you count up all the weights in total, and then you just pick a random number between 0 and the total weight. And then you just loop through them one at a time until you've reached that random number, and then you pick that one. Meaning that you have a weighted randomness to it. Either that or you pick like the top 5 and just pick a random one out of that or whatever. But yeah, you probably would have like these tiles be able to take in information through functions and then return how they score based on that input information, and then just have some type of this could be a state tree task or like an evaluator or whatever that just requests information from all of them and that keeps that like in an array or something like that, or in a map. But yeah, so you effectively just have a long list and score everything. It's probably the way that I would look at that. And the way you would write how that gets scored is like entirely obviously dependent on how you want your game to work. But yeah, so this effectively would work the same way that Unreal's built-in query system works for like navigation, because there you can just set up different scoring systems, and they can either like subtract or add or multiply the existing score from all the tests before them, and then you either just pick the best or pick a random out of the best X% or whatever of entries that it like finds. But if you're going to do this on a tile-based system, you might need to like write a lot of that from the ground up instead of using Unreal's like built-in query system. So you can like write it a little bit more specifically to your needs. The same way that my turn-based RPG series that's going on right now effectively rebuilds major parts of the gameplay ability system, but to be like aware of a turn-based context instead of a real-time context. But you can still use the existing systems and how they work as like reference of like kind of the architecture of things, and then tinker around with making it suit what you need it to do. And then rebuild the entire thing from the ground up, more or less. It's a little less flexible the way that you probably write it yourself, because you're writing it for a very specific use case. But yeah, effectively, like any querying system is just a list of points that get scored. That's what querying is. That's a little oversimplified, but that's the gist of it. So that's how you would probably like do any choosing in that regard. So let's export this thing, shall we? Export FBX. I guess we can just do Spirit FBX. That's fine. Don't need any of the animations, the armatures. Let's add leaf bones. Why not? Only deform bones. We don't have non-deform bones. Only visible objects, pretty please. And then we aren't allowed to do that because that is not a checked out asset. Okay, sure. Spirit rigged is what we're going to call it. Welcome back in Unreal. We're going to get rid of this little dude, which is going to remove him from that level, but that's fine. Why is it referenced by... I don't care. Sure. Spirit rigged. Import that. Sure. Override asset, nope. Don't even necessarily want you to use that material, to be honest. Still thinks that there's a thing in here. Well, in that case, we just import it in here and then move it. Wait, why is it not importing the mesh? What the fuck? My guy. Force all mesh type as skeletal mesh. Why are you not... Does it not have a mesh? Did I not export the mesh? Visible objects. It is visible. Is it because I have parts of it hidden in edit mode? Surely that couldn't be it. Kinda must be though. I'm losing my mind. Why is it not importing the mesh? Let's import it into Blender again. When I import it into Blender, it imports it with a mesh. So the mesh is in the FBX. Why is Unreal not importing the FBX? What the fuck, dude? Skeletal meshes. Import skeletal meshes, yes. There we fucking go, okay. That was weird. I don't need you to have this. Don't need, well, do need that actually. Yeah. Go on, get rid of the material. Deleting asset any day now. Thank you. Boom. Man, he does look kind of neat, doesn't he? So yeah, we have this tail and bone as well, just because. So it's in a really weird place. I hope that's not gonna fuck with it too much. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So, skeleton mesh, right? We go in and create a control rig. And this should be relatively easy because I looked this up before we started. I'm going to add in a new control at the head. I don't know why my controls are always so massive. Box? Called box, okay. Seriously though, whenever I add in stuff, they're always massive. I don't know why. It's probably something to do with like Blender scaling or whatever. So we have this. Right, and then we just take our head. And we say parent constraint. This is now a child of that. Which means we can now... Maybe we need to hook that up, to be fair. But now that moves with it. Fantastic. And then we just take all this, because with that as well, it doesn't really matter, as an item array. And we for each over that. And I think all we need to do is we need to set the transform for the given item to spring interpolates. I think it's called something like that. Spring interp. I think all we need to do is get the transform. I didn't come up with this myself. I think I still have the page open, actually. Let me just look at it. Yeah, so you get the transform of the bone, and then you just put that in, and then put the result back into there. And in theory, that should... yeah, do that. It's a little fucky the way it works right now, though, but that's the idea. Let's say the strength is a little higher. Kind of feel like we just want to do this with the entire transform, not gonna lie. Can we spring interpolate the entire transform? We cannot. That's not that big a deal. Just make it a transform. At this point is where we start like messing around a little. Because I also want the quaternions to do this, I think. And the scale should always be 1, 1, 1, so I don't know what the fuck's going on with all that. But what if we spring interpolate quaternion? We can just say, hey, the rotation to the rotation, maybe? That's not really working, is it? I'm gonna lie, I imagine this going more easily. I mean, this, just doing this works, right? Just needs to be way less laggy. That's kind of fun. I would very much still like to also try to figure out how to do this with the rotation as well, if possible. So let's just do a set rotation. Can we just do set rotation? We can. Just to see if that maybe... that's a little bit more like it. So what if we only do the rotation bit? Yeah, I don't think that's quite what I want it to be. I think doing both is good. I think we do want to do both. Just maybe this also needs to be a little bit stronger. I just want this to, like, what does this look like when I do a full 360? Can I... doing it backwards is a little weird, not gonna lie. Doing it forward is actually like pretty much what I wanted it to be. So the idea being is I only now need to animate the head, right? If I just animate the head to move around a little bit as a movement and as an idle animation. And if I move the head to like just have like a packing animation for a basic attack, that's the entire enemy more or less done. The only thing that I need to test out, because I haven't done that yet, I think if I now use this control rig to make an animation, it will bake all of the animation into the animation sequence, right? I don't need to like also use this control rig as like a post-processing effect. But I might want it to be post-processing is the thing. But I also want to see it in the sequencer. So if I want to do that, maybe I use this in the animation blueprint. And the sequencer, I only give the head bone, like the head control. Keyframes. Like if I don't give any keyframes to any of these, it won't bake them into the... I guess we just need to test this out. I think that's what we need to do. I think we just need to test this out. So I put like a control rig character like somewhere fucking in here. Automatically made a thing. Let's go back into selection mode so that I can just like put you into... Why are you offset that weirdly? That's because of what I did here. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's Control G to make you go back. That it is kind of fun though, isn't it? I kind of do like it. Makes me think that I definitely want to make like a more snake-like enemy as well, because that's going to be super easy to animate as well. All you have to do is like make it like do like this, right? And you have like your... there's a little bit more to it. Anyway, so let's put the sequencer on screen so you guys can see what I'm doing. So if we just make this head control and we move this to like... I guess we just move it left to right a little, right? So like 30 frames. Move it to there. And then like 60 frames. Move it to there. And then 90 frames, move it back to the start. That'll be our like animation. Oh, that's just that makes sense. This should be at 90 and that should be at 120. Because going from there to there, it's like double the distance, obviously. That's probably nice to like add a bit of rotation to both of these, I'm thinking. Okay, this is like super badly animated. Clearly. I just need it to be... like super clear that it's actually doing all that, right? We'll fix up the actual animation to be good in a moment. I want to create a linked animation. This will be the spirit's movement. If you open up that animation sequence, it does have everything baked into the bones. Which means that it also doesn't loop properly. So we actually don't want that, do we? That's a little... Okay, I don't really know how I'm going to deal with that. Because I don't want the animation itself to have that data. I want that to be done through the animation blueprint, like post-processing thing. Let's set up the animation blueprint for it first, and then we'll loop back around. Because the idea would be that we give it like the spirited movement, and then we add a control rig, for which we don't actually need to do anything for like inputs, because all we need to do is give it the hold on. So okay, I think I didn't give it actually a thing, did I? Yeah, so let's give it the spirit control rig. Then this needs to be looping. So these need to be two different things. So that's gonna be a little annoying to deal with though. Because we won't see what the actual look of our movement is while we're animating. Because what we need to do is we need to not have this. All right. That might actually give us a interesting bit of extra control though, because this is now getting applied procedurally after the fact, right? So we'll rename this control rig to be a spirit control rig dynamic chain. And then we'll make another one that we animate with, and that'll be a spline. I think that'll be fun. I think that's going to be the best of both worlds, potentially. Again, it might end up looking shit once put together, but we'll figure that out. So just make another control rig. And we'll call this the anim rig. And for this one, we're going to do something fun. We're going to make a control on the head, on tail 1, tail 5, and tail 11. And then make all of them smaller, because again, it spawns them in as being huge. And let's make those like sphere thick. Right. So then we use the Spline IK node. And all we need to do is we need to just take all these bones. Guess might as well take this as well, who cares. As an item array. It's going to be the bones. Then take these controls. And not fuck the primary axis. The up axis doesn't really matter, so I can just keep that at... that's the up axis, never mind. Secondary spline direction doesn't matter. No, it does. Anyway, so now we can move this around as a spline. These, that's the issue. These need to be like not parented. How can we unparent as a thing? You shift B. So with that, we can move this around as a spline. I don't think I want it to be this. It's a little messed up. Probably just needs more segments. No, that does seem about right. So maybe it's the issue was this after. No. Primary axis is -1 and up axis is nothing. That's it. There we go. So now, now we have that, we can move this around as a spline. So we can actually like animate this with a little bit more like personality to it as well. We don't have any control over the head rotation at the moment, so we'll probably want that to also be a thing. So let's set up a... I don't know if this is going to fuck with anything, but we can check if we set up a parent constraint for the head, because it's also part of the IK spline. So it might be kind of messed up, but we'll see. Yeah, that's kind of messing it up, isn't it? There's also the issue that then rotates the entire body around. Didn't think about that. Didn't think about that at all. I guess that means we... What if we do a rotation constraint between the head? This is just a wild idea. This might not work. And this, which is going to copy over its rotation for the entire thing. But then, I think there's a way to... like set transform on neck 1. Like invert rotation or something, right? So if we then get the heads rotation, so we get the bone rotation. If we invert that, that doesn't work because it's making it into a set translation. What the fuck? Let's try again. Something just got messed up, I think. Or maybe it needs to be a full set transform. Yeah, it just turns it into a set translation. That's weird, because this is supposed to be able to just set rotation bone. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's not quite it. It rotates it in the opposite direction. Which, I mean, is an interesting thing to have happened, but it's not really what I guess we wanted to do this on local space, actually. That's probably still not it. So this might have been better off being a like separate bone. We can still do that. There's nothing that we've done yet that's gonna stop us from doing that. To be like super clear. Oh, I just had an idea. We can actually set this to use an animation blueprint, can't we? So if we set this to use this animation blueprint, we still have I guess if we set this to be its, hold on, set that to be its post-processing blueprint. Then we can enable the post-processing. Post-processing shouldn't happen on the head anyway, should it? Yeah. Okay, so let's, before we like mess things up too bad, let's just change this around a little. Because this should be fairly easy to tweak. What we'll do is we'll go back into edit mode here. Something severely messed up there anyway. So we just need this to not be connected. And then we need to just set this bone to always be trying to move toward the end of this bone. I think that's the way that we're going to do it. So if we can just disconnect the bone as well. Oh, that might do it actually. Because now I can move this without too much trouble, but it should be moving in the other way. Welcome, David, to the stream. Hopefully me losing my mind over all this isn't too confusing to join into. Using IK should do. That's not really. The issue is that we had this bone over here, which has like all of these as children. And I need to like rotate this bone without all of these bones rotating with it. So anything I do to like transform this bone is going to take all of these bones with it. So we actually like do straight up need to like just clear parent on this one. And then we need to parent it to the root directly. So that way I can now make him look around and have a separate control for the tail. Sweet. Okay. Probably should have thought about that earlier. Because I don't know how Unreal deals with re-importing things with new skeletons. Would you like to generate the skeleton from this mesh? This may invalidate. Yeah, sure. No, actually, I don't want to do that. Now I think about it. Let's get rid of all these. Yeah, sure, that's fine. Yeah, it's just a little bit of an oversight when making this skeleton. It's like we already fixed it right there, so it's not that big a deal. It's just I didn't think about it, just made a singular chain because I was so focused on having like the spring interpolation that I didn't think about the fact that I wanted them to be able to move independently as well. Yeah, we can just delete and re-import. Make sure that it actually imports the skeleton mesh this time because we had that as an issue before. Don't need this material because we already have one. And then we just need to remake the control rig real quick, but that's not that big a deal. So this one, we create the control rig, spirit rigged, spring dynamic. And that doesn't even like actually need anything else going for it, does it? Only thing that we need is the neck up to the tailbone. Two for each. Get transform. Set transform. Quaternion and a vector. Vector, quaternion. That should be all. Well, then we also do need the neck bone to always interpolate toward the end of the head bone as well, don't we? I think, because otherwise that's never gonna like do anything. I don't know why Blender made could deal with Epic to do smooth the process. I mean, it's not that bad generally to like just re-export from Blender. It's just when you already have made like a full skeleton that a bunch of things like hook into, and you change that skeleton, yeah, that's gonna like break stuff. I don't think that that's something that you're gonna really like change, to be honest. Yeah, so I think we want to do that before. So we want to set this neck. Let's actually keep it at this for now, because we're going to make that a control rig with the whole spline thing as well, right? So that might actually do well enough as well. So we just create another control rig for the animation rig. Anim rig. Open that up. We'll get to that in a moment. First, what I want to do is I want to make a animation blueprint. We'll call this BP. That's funny. All that this needs to do, I think, is use the input pose control rig over it, and the control rig that we're going to use over it will be the BP. What do we call it? Did I misspell it? I didn't save it. Because it's not saved, it doesn't see it as an asset yet, I guess. Wait, what? Oh, I'm an idiot. Yeah, spring dynamic is, yeah. I'm mixing things up. I've had a long day, okay? Go in here, post-process. Can do that. Cool. Then we come into the animation rig and might as well disable this, why not? or enable. Try Spline IK again. And here we take the head, the neck, all the way up to the tail. Create that as an item array. Put that in as a bones. And then we do head, tail 1. I think we did tail 5 before. It's a pretty good one. Tail 11. Create controls for selected. Unparent them all. Change the shape a little bit. We might change them around a little more. Actually, we will change them around a little more. What we're going to do is we're going to make these circles. And then rotate them like this. So they're a little less intrusive. When I scale them up. One somewhere in here. There we go. We'll get there. All right, that'll be the controls. And ideally, that should be pretty much all there is to it for the spline. Well, then we need to go back in here, change this to y-1. Up axis we don't need. And then the secondary spline, for some reason, it's by default set to 5, but should be 1. And that didn't do it for some reason. Should this be just 1? No, that definitely should be -1. So, what the fuck's your problem, man? I just had this. Do I need the up axis to BC? Let's draw spline again to see if it's doing something weird. It is doing something fairly weird, admittedly. Why is it doing that? I guess it really doesn't like... okay. I'm guessing what it wants me to do instead is the... No. Let's get rid of this head. And then... Hold on. Two things at once. And then change this back to -1, because I'm fairly certain that -1 is the proper value there to work with. But did I just... Oh, I didn't take neck 1 into it, did I? Oh, that might be the issue. Well, that still doesn't quite fix it. What's going wrong? Something is going... Well, I mean, this kind of works. The spline itself is utterly fucked. But everything else seems to work fine. Yeah, okay, never mind. I mean, if it works, right? The fact that the spline is super weird, we can ignore. We can just not draw it. There we go. So then the only thing that we really need to do is take like the head and parent it. So we parent the head to this head control. I think we're there, man. Because then this will move with it as well. Yeah, there we go. Can you rotate this? We then enable the post-processing with it. Well, the post-processing ain't doing shit. But I guess what we need the post-processing to do is actually doing this in world space, right? It's already doing it in global space. I believe this might be necessary to do in order to make it work like in real time. Because it then converts it to world and then back. So it works in world space. I'm not entirely sure this is necessary, to be honest, but sure. We put this in here. Let's just make a quick test animation, I guess. At 30, 90, and then at like 120. I will make a couple of keyframes. And then see how the test animation deals with that. Because right now we don't see the post-processing, which is probably good. Or we want this to be like... It's not even on a fucking keyframe. God damn it. Then move that over there. It's, again, not on the keyframes. I hate the way that I don't use the next keyframe button. I should. Alright, this is very basic movement, right? We can all agree on that. Now if I do a linked animation sequence, let's call this just idle again. Sure. Doesn't seem like it's doing much. I think I'm skipping an important step somewhere. Because I'm fairly certain that, yeah, if I just like go in here to this guy, right? And move him, well, his legs also don't move. If I move the mesh, also doesn't do it. Did I not add the spring? I didn't think. I'm an idiot. I didn't even add the spring interpolation. Okay. Spring interp. We interrupt the world. And then we set it back to it. That makes sense, because otherwise just doing like to world from world is weird, right? But now that we have this other node between it, it actually makes sense that we're doing that. You see, that adds that nice, smooth secondary motion to it all again. So now if we loop this animation, we have that like dynamic secondary motion that's getting added. That's nice. So now I wonder, because in theory, okay, that still doesn't work. That makes sense. Where did it even put that animation sequence? Hold on. Where even is this animation? Yeah, let's move that to a place where I won't lose it. So the idea behind this is that because it has like dynamic secondary motion, the animation doesn't feel as looped, because it's actually responsive to the way it moves in the world. And especially with like blending, it doesn't have like weird blending between two different like animations, because, well, there's like secondary motion on top of it through the post-processing is going to like remain over it, which means that blending between two different animations also gets smoothed out a little bit more. In theory. So yeah, let's open this up. Do we now... Why is it not doing anything now? What? Because now the post-processing is... No, this animation is just fucked. What? So because I'm not in animation mode? Why did that... Why does it not... What the... Let's try again. Add this back in. Add in control rig. Animation rig. Keyframe that. We needed to like do a proper animation for that at some point anyway, so it's not that big a deal. Why do you not animate anymore? None of this is even hooked up. Surely that's not the issue. Right? Like if I disconnect this and compile, does that change anything? No, you just stopped working. Let's clear this just to be like 1000% sure that's nothing to do with the post-processing. It is. What the fuck? Why is the post-processing fucking with that? I guess it does need to be given an input pose, maybe. Well, it works again, sure. But it doesn't have that secondary motion like previewed in there, which is a little annoying. I was kind of hoping that we could have that. But it doesn't seem like we can. Would have been nice to just have, you know? Anyway, with that, we might as well just make a more proper pose for this guy. Because I was thinking that the way that we were probably going to go with this would be something where it was a little bit more flat, as it's just like wiggling through the world. Right, and then we, in theory, all we need to like really do for this animation, I think, is essentially just like making him his head bob up and down, and then the rest of his body should follow through the like dynamic chain. It's bad. I mean, might need to do a little bit more with his animation. Let's call this idle swim, because it's kind of like it's swimming through the air, right? Yeah, I don't know why it was messing up that. Sure. Why not? Crash. Exactly what I wanted to have happen right now, having it crash. Isn't that just the best? Life is amazing with Unreal Engine sometimes, man. Okay. Let's try it again. We didn't lose that much progress, I don't think. So it's not that big a deal. It does stretch out the textures a little bit, admittedly, but I'm going to go ahead and say that's probably fine. Apparently I decided, by the way, that we're going to go for a back and forth type of deal instead of an up and down. Sure. Don't know when or why I decided that, but now that it's crashed, that's apparently what we're doing. We can give it a little bit of extra motion here, I think. Like having this a little bit more like swaying with it. But again, a bunch of that is going to be done by the dynamic chain, in theory. End of the tail. Yeah, that's going to move through the like dynamic stuff there. is the idea. I don't know if it's going to work fairly well, but we'll see. Like that's where the like post-processing rig should come in and like do its magic. Which right now none of the magic seems to be happening. I do wonder why that is. Do you not have... Yes, you do not have a post-processing blueprint at the moment. That does have a post-processing blueprint. It freezes. Why does it freeze when it has the post-processing blueprint? It's overriding it back to like its default post through this. I guess we don't set, but we modify. Maybe. Oh, it's not hooked up, so maybe that's why. No, that's still fucked. So yeah, let's see what happens if we do modify transforms, right? So the item to modify will be this. I don't know if this is going to work. This might also make it fucking explode. We can do it both in one node now, so who knows? I'm working on a dynamic stat component system. It is better used to gameplay tags or names to identify the main stat name, modifier names that it looks for. I mean, gameplay tags are just names. So like if you need anything with like... Okay, I think we have our answer as to whether or not this is going to work. If you need anything with like a hierarchy, like parent and child relationship, that's where like gameplay tags come in, because that's a gameplay tag is just a structure in which you have names in a hierarchy. That's effectively what a gameplay tag is. But for like stats, I don't really see that being too useful. So I'd probably just go with an array of names, or like a structure with like a name and a float in it, and then make like an array out of that. Maybe a couple of floats, having one for like the max value, one for the minimum value, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this doesn't really work the way I thought it was going to, I'm not gonna lie. And I wonder why. That might be part of the issue. Yeah, okay. So the issue was just that nothing was hooked up. So it's just... I think that might have just been the issue. Okay, so now we actually see it even in a preview, right? So that's actually kind of cool. So yeah, there we go. We have the like tail moving with it as well now. That's what I'm thinking. Use names to make it not to rely on gameplay data table too much, because what I'm thinking, if only the modifier has matching core stat, then can modify it. Else it gets ignored if the certain abilities can't be used on it. I mean, I can only tell you the way that I've coded it for my own like RPG system is the component can just take in a name for like the stat that it's going to like adjust, and then it just checks whether or not it has that stat and adjusts it, and then the abilities just kind of like request a change by running that function on like the stat component. So like the ability will try to like subtract mana, for instance, from something. It'll just send a function call to the appropriate component and just tell it like, hey, you're going to take away this much mana. And if that character doesn't have mana, it just like goes through the array, tries to find the mana, ends up not finding anything because it doesn't have a mana stat, for instance, and then just nothing happens. But if there is a mana stat, it'll subtract it. You know, I kind of feel like maybe we even want the... I'm going to do a weird thing. The higher the index, the lower I want the strength to be. So we're going to set the strength to be a divide of like 12 divided by the index. The core stats are like HP, mana, armor, resistance. Yeah, so like at that point, that would just be like the defaults that I would give the component. Like you already have those whenever you instantiate a component. And if any character needs like a specific stat that nothing else has, you can just add an like an item to the array. And any abilities that like interface with that stat can use that. Obviously, you can also then make a function on your component to check whether or not a certain character has a certain stat to maybe like do some like, okay, maybe that's a bit much. Hold on. Maybe we need to divide the index first as well. Divided by 2, not multiply. That seems pretty good. Well, now the first one really doesn't have that much going for it. So we also need to... Let's set it to like 9. And then... Well, actually, let's set it to like 15. First one should have some. How does this make sense? So the first one will be 15 divided by 0. Well, this needs to be, that's the issue. This needs to be +1. That'll be it. So let's go back to 12. How's development going? I mean, pretty decently. It's just never as fast as you want it to be, obviously, but... And then let's just, like, kind of take this one out. And then maybe add a little bit of like this, which it doesn't have a keyframe for. Hold on. We'll get there. You see, we're getting there. Nah, that's not it. I think this should be going up a little. And then in this one, we should be going down a little. Hope you're doing fine. Been working on a certain project to help a colleague notice that the level we're working on had 9 different sub-levels, light, geometry, post-process, etc. What is the point of having so many sub-levels in the same area? Am I missing something? It's performance friendly to have it separate. It's mostly a workflow thing, to be honest. Because if you're gonna have them all loaded at the same time, there's no like performance benefit to it necessarily, but it does allow you to like unload whole chunks of your level at once if you like don't need a specific like set of lights. If that is a sub-level in and of itself, you can just unload that sub-level and those lights just go away. So that's kind of nice. But aside from that, it can just be like a workflow thing to have certain like sub-levels with certain like content in it. Specifically, if you've been working with Unreal for a while, the whole idea of multiple people working on the same level used to be a bit of a problem, and this was one of the workarounds, right? So you would have like your lighting artist, the person who does all your lighting, would have a sub-level that they work in, and as such, only they work in the sub-level, so you don't have any conflicts of 2 people working in the same level. Because it used to be the case that if you have multiple people working in the same level and then they both save the new level, suddenly you have a conflict where you don't have both of the new content in the level because you have, it's a binary asset, right? It can't do the merging for that. That is not really an issue anymore because Unreal levels now are a lot more modular and I believe can be merged. At least world partition levels can. I don't know if individual normal levels can. But that used to be, as far as I know, a workaround to like the merging issue as well. Where are you talking release date? I saw your video about closed beta, but forgot if you said you had a deadline. I mean, I've got a new playtest coming up in the next couple of months, probably at some point. For release, that's a difficult question. Probably, I would imagine like 2027, something like that. It's going to be a while. You can also use sub-levels as data layers and enable and disable layers. Yeah, that also, yeah. It's literally a sub-level called post-processing that only had 1 post-processing volume in it. Seems unnecessary. I mean, a little, yeah. But again, if that is something that you're like used to working in a workflow where somebody might need to like be able to change that post-processing volume without then fucking up a whole bunch of other stuff that other people might be working on, if that's like a workflow you're used to, like that very much does make sense because you don't want that post-processing level to be like in a level asset, then random developer number 69 opens the level to do something in the post-processing volume, and then random developer number 420 also opens that level to do like a whole bunch of like lighting, and random developer number 322 opens it up to swap out some art assets, and then they like, what happens then, right? So even if there's just like one guy that's doing the post-processing, he can just worry about his sub-level. Again, I think that in modern versions of Unreal, this is not as much of an issue anymore. I haven't really run into it because I don't work with people. I know that this is a thing that like used to be like consideration though. But there's definitely like not a performance side to it. Unless you're like actively unloading things. But again, if it's like one post-processing volume that you're putting into a sub-level, you're probably not like loading unloading that as it becomes needed. You know what? I think what we'll need to do is we'll need to get rid of this idea. I don't think this idea works. I think we just need to animate the entire thing. And then just have the post-processing as a little bit of a bonus on top. So we do probably need to like... pull this to the side as well. But we don't need to do the secondary like lag motion for it probably. Well, maybe we do. Because we do want this to start moving away later again, so that we have that proper like slithering still. Right, so we can do that like just with both of these, just move that along a little. And then I guess we have the same here. So that moves to there. Well, actually... probably like that, right? That the curves. Yeah, but there's also like just generally like the curves are good for like smoothing out things and like creating extra overshoot without creating extra keyframes. This is not about overshoot, this is about lag. So this is still about timing. The overshoot, there might still be some room to like add in some extra overshoot here, to be fair. Which will also play fairly well, hopefully, with the post-processing thing. But like, there's a combination of overshoot and timing needed, I think. But yeah, if we just do a little overshoot here and an overshoot there as well. That's where the curves come in, which... yeah, the main issue that we're having here is like this works remarkably well so far, but it's just like to the other side it doesn't work as well, and I don't really know why. I guess because this is still moving. It's not actually doing like moving lag, right? What it's doing is it's just interpolating toward a position. So what ends up happening is if we have like this snake spine like this, if it is like this, well, actually, it's more like this, right? These bones are in the process of moving into that direction. This is already moving back into that direction. So by the time this gets back here, No, that doesn't fully make sense the way I explain it, I don't think. I think it's the other way around. The issue is that I think the secondary motion and the primary motion are like cancelling each other out, is basically the idea. Because like this works well, but then as this is still moving that way, this already is moving that way. Might also just be that the pose is not strong enough. Okay, with all that in mind, let's just start over real quick. It is kind of weird seeing that secondary motion like just responding to you in the animation. I actually don't know that I love it. Yeah, so this is because of the whole lag, it's actually doing the opposite of what it needs to be doing. Because the movement here should be bigger than it is there. But right now the movement here is smaller because it cancels itself out. So what it needs to... What it probably just needs to do in that case... That's probably not a good looking motion, but if we just make it pause... Yeah, no, it just needs more overshoot. Like, we need to just manually... We need to animate this to... work the other way around. So instead of this moving most and that moving least, we need this to move most, back and forth. And that, I think, will get us the motion that I'm looking for. So I don't know why this is at 30 and not at 45, but... Well, with some rotation added as well. Which is actually a good point, because I don't think I have any way to influence this thing's rotation, do I? No. That means... How am I going to do that? Well, I guess that's what the Spline IK itself does, isn't it? It's just not doing the rotation very well. Am I interpolating the rotation? I am. From the front, it actually doesn't look that bad. It definitely needs to be a little more straight on. As in, this just needs to be like lower down and further forward. Or maybe not that much further forward, actually. I mean, that's... With a little bit of work on the curves for the overshoot, that actually isn't that bad. Would like a little bit more rotation to everything, but if we just like curve this up and then curve this down, make this a little sharper as well then. And do that for all of them. But I guess we need to increasingly do it less for every control. So this only gets a decent little bit. It's maybe even too much already, man. In the end, we'll get it to work, hopefully. We're getting there. I think we're doing pretty good. Oh, this needs to... other way. I think we might have overdone it a little there. But maybe not. Like, looking from the front, it's not that bad. Looking from the side, it is kind of janky. But if we just add in a little, like, rotational work to this whole dealio, how does that change things? From the head, right? Head needs to lead the movement. So the issue right now is that the head moves along with the movement. So we need to just get this and move this like back 10 frames. And then obviously this needs to then like keep moving to about that state. And then the head rotation, is this rotation? Yes. Needs to also maybe do a bit more of this. What the fuck am I even... What? Why is there a keyframe there? Okay, to actually make this work well, what we need to maybe do is take this back to make sure that we are using the right keyframes. Yeah, okay. So we offset this by about the 10 frames that I had. And then we make sure that we have a whole cycle of this before and a whole cycle of it after. Because then we get to properly play with these keyframes. Might be a bit much. But yeah, so now it's like really feeling like it's leading into the movement with its head, right? And it even like blends. It even loops remarkably well already. Don't even need to do any like weird ass keyframe stuff. I think you don't really see the loop point. Huh. Neat. Yeah, that's kind of it. It's kind of like looking like a slithering eel. And that's kind of the vibe that I was going for. And the rotational aspect of it actually kind of works remarkably well as well. It looks very exaggerated from this angle. So maybe we can cool it a little bit on the tail movement. On both of these ends. It kind of feels like this also should be slightly offset, which means that we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to add in keyframes before and after to make sure that everything more or less lines up. Well, I guess the before keyframe here, this is the only one that really matters. It feels like these bits are just a little too disconnected now. It's like very much like the head. It's also because the head still isn't like properly leading in rotation here. Like we're fucking up somewhere with the rotation. Hold on. Something isn't going quite right about that. Wait, did we just like do all that work on the location? No, we... Oh, the issue is that we moved the things as a whole. We need to only move the rotations. So everything for location needs to not be offset. So we need this to still be there. Which means that we then don't need this tail set of keyframes. We're going to get there, man. We're going to get there. They also don't need to lag behind because now... feel like this rotation needs to like lead in even more, to be honest. Well, now it doesn't loop as smoothly, but we can work on that. Okay, let's work on the looping here, because yeah, this keyframe. What the hell even is this? This one doesn't like matter at all. This just needs to. Hmm. This is also just a little too aggressive. This is a pretty smooth curve. Like the way he, like this, now, now I'm kind of lost what I was looking at. Yeah, that's too aggressive. That's pretty smooth. We need that both to be like that smooth. So we need it to like feel like that. So this needs to be a little more like this. Maybe. Or how the hat fixates on a location before the tail moves. Yeah, that is that I'm fairly happy with as well. That was the easy bit. Now making it actually like look good as a movement is a pain in the ass, but we're getting there, man. We're getting there. I feel like I might also just be like missing some. That's looping, but this is still too aggressive of a move. I guess. Why? I guess this is just too strong. This peak is not even as like dull as this peak. I guess maybe you could do with a little overshoot. That's probably it. It probably needs a little overshoot. Not too much, but just like a little. What the fuck even? Is that two keyframes here on top of each other? Now that explains why it's kind of fucked. Get rid of that one. The overshoot is helping it feel a lot more alive. Now, this still is too aggressive. I'm just gonna... Again, as long as this and this more or less match up, it's actually pretty... Well, that's actually... not bad. I was going to say good, but I don't want to say that. It's pretty not bad. Yeah, I like that. I think this is pretty decent. I'll look at that in the... It is kind of fucking with the tail a bit, isn't it? Maybe I need to make that a little bit less. Maybe just increase the strength of this to like 7. I don't know why it's suddenly glitching out when it does that. That's not good. Is it still... Why? But it doesn't do that in here, right? Or am I just not seeing it? Yeah, it doesn't do it in there. Oh, hold on. No, I think it might. This does need to be just a bit stronger. I know that it's kind of fucking with this a bit, but... Maybe somewhere in between. Let's do just 5. Yeah, so the idea in the movement here is based on like the way, well, snakes, but mostly eels in this case, would move, which is mostly like the head moving, and then everything else is just kind of like lagged behind in the same movement. That's still too strong. That turn needs to be a little more shallow. It's also like a location thing, right? No, it's not, because that probably also, to be fair, should be done some stuff with. Let's take all 3 of these and try to see if we pull these up. Pull these down. Is it just a timing thing? Does it not get the same amount of time? It's 30 frames to move to that side and then 30 frames to move back to that side. Starts with its head over there. I don't feel like I did anything, but it feels better now. I think I've been looking at this for too long. Okay, I want to try one more thing, because the strength of these is it's just a little much toward the end there. But I feel like this is just too strong. We do need it to be that. But I guess that just means that we maybe are moving the tail out like too far. Which is easy to fix because that's just like... It is out pretty far, to be fair. Maybe just make this a little less intense. To either side. It's just that head turn and a movement is a little on the sharp side, but it might not be too bad. Like the first loop through it feels sharp, but now that it's just looping, it feels pretty good, I think. The way the head moves make me think it relies on monocular vision, which makes sense if it's supposed to be like a predator, so that adds up. Sweet. Always keeps one eye on the target at any given time. I get the feeling due to the head swerving as it moves. Yeah, so that actually makes sense, because what I was initially thinking is right now it's like constantly looking away from what is ahead of it, but actually no, it doesn't. It's constantly like swerving its head to make sure that like it keeps at least one eye on it. That actually makes sense. That's actually a really good explanation of what's going on. And why this works. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a good point. I mean, I intended to do that. So, yeah, if we then... I guess we can just, like, kind of take this, like, as a pose. We just, like, keyframe everything here. We can take this as a pose. And then make a new level sequence. Yo, can you explain how animations work with NPCs? Characters move, and then they do stuff. That's kind of a broad question, man. What do you want to know? Like spirits back. CK. What the fuck? Personally play around with locking its head, fixating it on the target, and keeping that still while the tail moves quickly in shorter range of motion. When it gets its eye on the player, that is. That might not be a bad idea. Might be nice to just have the tail moving a little bit more. Keeping the head a bit more still. For now, we're just going to keep that as its like idle and movement animation. And we'll like add an attacking animation, and that's kind of going to be it for him for the time being. I think. because I don't really have like a lot of plans for making this guy like particularly like complex in behavior either. It's mostly just gonna like kind of float and slither around and then like go into attack you and then run the fuck back off. But it could be kind of fun to have like the more like hat swiveling movement for its like idle patrolling animation, and then when it goes into to the player, have a faster moving animation where it has like a steady head. That actually makes sense. That's probably a good idea. But yeah, for now, I mostly just wanted to, and that's the wonderful thing about this like secondary movement now, because we can just like it does this, and that just kind of like does itself, right? We can add a little bit of like flair to it with all this, of course. It does make it difficult to see them in reverse, but I guess it doesn't really matter what they look like in reverse. I think about it, so it's probably fine. It does look kind of goofy though, doing that one in reverse. Yeah, okay, so this definitely needs like a lot more of that going forward, which means that this also like needs a lot more. It's kind of in between an eel and a bird, I have decided. In the way that it like moves, because the way it moves is very like fish and eel like, but the way that it's attacking is like because it has that like little beak to it. I feel like it would attack with like a packing animation. So no motion trails for it though, because this needs to be more of a curve. A lot more of a curve. It's kind of amazing how... Oh, that actually kind of makes sense. So that is... Okay. The upward motion definitely gives more bird-like vibes, like it's taken off the swoop towards player. Yeah, so that's kind of the thing. Like, it kind of like builds up the like power in like its neck to like back down. I think it's kind of like chicken-like in that way. It's a very aggressive chicken, which makes it sound a lot less intimidating. I also just need I need both of these. We're like stacked. Thank you. Gravity doing the work. That's also, yeah, that's probably also like part of it. I'm also kind of just like doing things that feel right without like altogether a ton of regard for um like biological reasoning. The biological reasoning is, in the end, what this works off of in the real world, right? Just need this to... I guess the rotation needs to have a little bit of lag to it. I want the movement to be more rounded as well. Like this needs to be at this point, like here. Which means that we need this to move more down and this to stall out. Okay, I guess that makes sense. I guess that kind of works. Obviously, we need to redo some timing, and then like a lot of this also is now like clipping through itself. So like we need to hold this pose a bit more. And this needs to just be faster. Let's move that down to be only like 15 frames maybe. Yeah, that maybe not. Is it to 90? Also, maybe don't have it clipping through the floor. Just an idea. And now, wild concept, but... sometimes you just gotta be creative like that, having it not clip through the floor. It's also a bit of Y location, I guess, because it's all local, right? Yeah, it's all local. Okay. This method comes through my background in musical theater, just based on observation, what you see, how it makes you feel. Yeah, that makes sense. I do like to think in terms of body mechanics to a certain degree, because it's a fairly like analytical way of animating, which in the end of the day I am like a mostly like analytical type of person. It's actually not bad. I do think you have a good point about a little pause here at the top, like giving giving him a little bit more time before he like bounces down. Which will also then make the bouncing down again be more snappy and faster. So that's a good thing for that as well. Does mean that we do need to add in finally a keyframe here, which is, I mean, fine, because we haven't had a keyframe here for some reason yet. But that means that we can flatten this out a little bit. I think flatten this out a little more. Actively, everything just gets flattened out. A bit more even. A little bit more. With a little bit more, I mean probably a fair bit more, actually. Okay. The pausing seems pretty good there. Let's bring this back in now. Ooh! That is ferocious! It's also clipping through itself, I'm pretty sure, but... That's okay. I do feel like we could probably do with him tilting the head back just a little more. And then maybe tilting it down ever so slightly more as well. And I do think like keeping him in this state a little longer so that the tail has time to like actually line up before like sweeping back down. It's probably good. And then maybe the tail should also sweep down before the head. So this also, we probably just want to like take most of this and just pull this out a little more. And then keep the head there a little longer. Which effectively just means copying this keyframe over, I think. Like a handful of frames. As we do. There's a little twitchiness there because of this, yes. Let's get that sorted out real quick. Can be a bit of movement here. It doesn't need to be super still. Matter of fact, it's probably better if it is not super still. But just no, like, weird spikes. It does need to move less. I don't know what keyframes are moving. I think it's, yeah, it's mostly these ones. It's probably fine if this just like does a bit of this. Not too much. I actually kind of like that. This is pretty much like the way I imagined it, this thing moving as we were like modeling him. It's obviously a little sketch in some places, the way that it moves, but I'm not unhappy with it, I don't think. Yeah, as far as the tech animations goes, I think this is also just like a pretty good like video game animation, right? It's got an entire second of wind up. Well, actually, it's got a second and a half of wind-up, so it might even be a little long as far as wind-up goes, to be honest with you. Might be good to turn that down a little, like make it a little faster. I don't know how that's going to feel for the animation, though. If we, like, make that 15 seconds, like... Needs a little more tweaking of the curves, because then it needs more overshoot as well, if we're going to make it that fast. But I think speeding up the animation is, like, from a gameplay sense, probably a good idea. But also I think it does give it even more snappiness. And I liked when things are snappy. I don't know why that sounded vaguely sexual. Didn't mean for it to be that, but fucking here we are. Oh, it does have a keyframe. I just was literally on top of it. Well, it's mostly about a timing thing, I think. I think giving players like a full second, a second sounds like it is a short amount of time, but in practice, a second turns out is actually pretty long for like reaction times. So I kind of just wanted to move faster. As in, I want the wind up to be shorter. I want the player to have a smaller window to react. Still a fair window, but between this and it actually like between the start of its like going up animation and its actual striking pose, which is down here, is a second. And I think a second is a pretty like reasonable amount of time. Right now it is a second. It was about a second and a half a moment ago. I think getting rid of that extra half second is probably good. But it's also fucking what the hell happened there? It's also one of those things that like maybe if players like play this and they find this to be like unreasonably short, I will have to like lengthen that time again. We're now at the rotation. I need to not do that. I need to... It's the X. It's this one, right? It's this one that I want to... No, that's the rotation as well. Which is the one that I want to deal with? I think it's this. Yes, okay. So, is it a little weird? Let's change it back to absolute view. We'll need to do something about the rotation as well, because now it's kind of clipping through its own chest. I need to see what does this handle do. That does also give it more heights. Overshoot, man. It's all about them overshoot. Yeah, so that needs to be a thing that we look into. But I suppose that's also a matter of getting this thing properly like curved up, right? Because it's this thing's Y location, I would imagine. As well as its Z location, probably. it's kind of fun how even in the curves you can see like the slitheriness of the movement, right? I think that's interesting. That's the kind of stuff that I get excited about. Yeah, I think the timing of this feels a bit better. Because it's still, I still would call this fair, right? You have all this time for like 30 seconds, up to 30 frames rather, before it actually hits you once it starts doing the animation. And I think the blend out is a little too quick. But that's also, it's actually going to be blending out during that time, so it's not that big a deal. But just while we're fine-tuning the animations, might as well just do that, right? Yeah, I like that. So for now, this is likely going to be the only... What the fuck? Okay. Likely the only two animations that this thing is actually going to have. This idle animation we don't use. So... Bye. Oh, is that why you are so weird? Because you were using that idle animation? No, you're just fucked. I don't know why you're fucked, but it doesn't really matter. So we have this as its movement. I guess we actually needed to have a proper idle animation as well, because we can't really have it like do this and not move. And then we have this as an attack. Now we definitely have that thing clipping through itself, to be fair. So that might be something we need to look into. But I do think that it's a pretty like satisfying movement. It's interesting that it doesn't clip through itself here. Right? Yeah, here it actually works the way you would expect it to work. Or that I would want it to work, rather. But here, it does something weird. To be honest, even if the animation was just this, it would probably be pretty good. I guess the way to figure out how that ends up working is to just put two of these into the world. And see what they are like when they move. Oh yeah, the boss fight in the back is attacking me. You'll stop in a moment, don't worry. Yeah, so I don't know, man. It kind of seems like maybe we need to drive the strength through a curve. Right, so we just make this a variable. We go into here, we can then make that exposed, I think, right? Strength, yes. And we should be able to drive that through a curve. So if we make Fuck you. I think we saved everything that's important. So it's not that big a deal, but that's the second crash in one stream. Well, we've been live for about 3 hours, so could be worse. But having crashes when you're not coding, it's kind of fucked. Let's try to restore them, I guess. Could not be successfully, yeah, because they haven't been jacked in like at all. But yeah, if we make a curve on the skeletal mesh, we can use that to drive the strength of the spring, meaning that we can make the strength of the spring a little less in the fast moving animations. Is the idea. You have a good time with going back to work. I'm about to like wind down here anyway. Once we try out this idea of driving this like through a curve, because I'm getting pretty tired of life. Oh, we don't use... Oh, instead of using a pin, we can use a curve. Okay, so what we can do then is compile, save, open, for instance, idle swim. Well, now we add it through here, I think, on the skeleton. Curves, there we go. We add a curve. This is lag power. Then back in here, we can now use... Nope. Maybe we need to save it first so that it recognizes it. Lag power, there we go. So that works. Fantastic. Can we give this like a default value as well? That would be fantastic if we could. I guess maybe not. So we add a curve. Does it have like just lag power in here now? It does. Okay, don't set that to a strength of 0. Ever. At time 0, we set this to a strength of, I think we have 4 by default for this, right? So yeah, maybe we like even set it to 5, make it a little less like strong. And then here, this is the thing that we really want to like add a curve, lag power. Again. No, don't do that. No, my boy. What did they do to my boy? Look how they massacred him. It needs to be like super strong. I think it's just like kind of like weirding out, to be honest with you. Let's also just adjust the animation a bit, because the animation, I think, also just starts in a bit of a fucked pose. Maybe? No, not really. Yeah, no. Animation is fine. think the issue is with the animation, actually, because the tail doesn't move down enough, I think. Maybe. And these move in a super weird way. Like, these definitely need to be moving, like, not like that. And that should probably be done through curves. But I don't care. So that might also help. Okay, now this is definitely a bit on the strong side. This animation is kind of fucked. I don't... Maybe it's not a good idea to do this with post-processing movement. But then again, I do think that it might... For some reason, it also, like, is fucked in the first frame here, and I don't know why. Because this has nothing to do with the post-processing. This is just a discrepancy between how I'm rigging this, like how it's in the sequence and how it's in reality, right? This is just not the same. We can all agree on that. Like, thoroughly so. So something's a little messed up about that. But that seems to have fixed it, actually. Pretty good. When we get to, like, this bit, I think it might make sense to let our strength go back down to what it used to be, which is, I think, 4. And we can interpolate that a little slower. So what does that look like in world now? I mean, this is still a little weird, but... Oh, they don't exist in the world. Okay. It's all very much still proof of concept doing this with the post-processing animation, but I don't know, that's an acceptable level of clipping through itself, I would say. Ideally, I would have it move differently, and I guess I can just, like, kind of force it into that somehow with the animation, because I think the animation itself also is kind of, like, jank in how it... Well, no, the animation itself... For some reason, it really wants to, like, move to the left with its, like, tail in the recoil. Can we add in a curve through this actually? Because that would be nice if we could also animate that through here, but I don't think we can. Oh, that's fine. I guess this kind of does lean to the left, so maybe we want this to lean a bit less to the left as a whole. So it has more of that kind of like almost two-dimensional like wiggling movement. But now I'm thinking that it's just way too strong and that's why it's clipping through itself. No, it's definitely... I mean, it's still not strong enough with these. Does it actually need to be like fucking 50? Because it kind of feels like at this point, increasing the strength of this is not going to actually matter. Aside from just making it look like real weird. So as a whole, let's just... I do want it to be stronger, just not that much stronger, I don't think. Why does it end at 20? It definitely should be ending at 4. So what we might do instead... I like the idea of having this done in real time. But what we could do instead is we could add in a control rig on top of this in theory, right? And then add that as like the spring dynamic. And then even if we don't have this, or rather, well, we do want to keep that actually. If we... Yeah, you see, now it's doing it like twice over. Oh, is that the issue? Is it getting baked with that stuff in it as well? But it's actually, it is kind of a cool movement when it does it like double. But it's because it's now doing it in the animation itself as well, right? So if we go into here and we go into its post-processing and we clear that out, this should now still have all of that secondary movement, but it will be baked into the animation, which makes it maybe slightly less janky. And we might be able to... If we expose that strength thing as an animation channel, we can also then animate that. That might be better than doing it through post-process. Because now I can just do this. And it like actually doesn't look shit. Well, actually, it doesn't do anything. Why doesn't it do anything? That still does not look nearly the same, right? Yeah. Well, no, it does. Yeah, so now it's baked into the animation, so it looks a lot better. So I think that's the way that we're going to go. We just bake it into the animation, and then we go into... so we don't have this anymore. We'll just use this as a normal animation blueprint. That's fine. Spring dynamic. We're going to change this into a animation channel instead. So just add in a new control, lag, power, call that a float, animation channel. I thought I'd be able to... Why not? Oh, do I need to compile this first to have it count? Maybe? No. And just get floats. There we go. So the default value will set to 4. Oh yeah, you need to, well, initial. Initial needs to be 4. So then that's animatable as well, right? So now we can go in here and we have that as a thing that we can animate. Which is set to 0 now. So that's not that's not very good. The initial should be, I guess if I just quit out of this and go back in, it might fix itself. Just want to make sure that if I add this back in, it'll do an initial of like 4. There we go. But we could very much say, well, actually, I want this to like ramp up here to, or ramp down even, to be a value of like 2. And then make it catch up. So we want it to go up to like 6. And then we slowly like animate that back to 4 because that's going to be like our base value. So we do want to get back to that by the end. Well, actually we don't. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, I think that works best, doing it as part of the animation itself, like additively baked in. We do have a little bit of bumpiness. It's just a weight painting thing. So yeah, let's just, I guess, add that onto this as well. Because this animation is going to look ass. It might be kind of fucked for the looping of this, though. Yeah, for this it's probably... So for this, it might be best to still do it dynamically, but then what we can do in the blueprint is we can just do the idle. Then we do the control rig for the like dynamic spring. And then we go into, for now, just a default slot. So yeah, for this one, it'll be like dynamically added. Because otherwise the looping is not going to make any sense. Like we're not going to get this to a loop if we add that in, baked in, I don't think. And it's just smoother this way. But then as we blend this into like a animation montage, it will just overrule whatever the control rig was doing before it. That makes sense. So yeah, this still is ugly, but just to like show you, if I add in like the control rig here, flux spring dynamic, like this looks a bit better. I might actually like even put this down to like 3. Like this instantly looks better, but then if I save this out and I go to the idle swim, because we're introducing that lag, it doesn't loop. And we're not going to get that to loop unless we make it stop moving for everything to catch up and then start moving again. But I don't want to do that because that would be ugly as well. So this is just an animation that is going to need that like extra little bit of like, not technically post-processing anymore, I guess, but like dynamically added movement. But for the very fast moving like attack, I think it's better to just bake it in, because otherwise it absolutely shits itself, as you can see. But yeah, that's the rigging for him done. It's an interesting bit of experimentation that we did today. I'm still figuring out a lot of like control rig stuff, but I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at animation because I'm working so much with control rig over the past couple of weeks, which is a good skill to get better at. But for now, that's been it, I think. So I will not be back on Thursday because I've got other shit to do on Thursday, unfortunately. So I'll be back on probably just next Tuesday. I've also got a very busy weekend, so even if I like wanted to stream to make up for it over the weekend, I don't think I'm going to have time. So I'm probably going to be back on Tuesday, and by that time, I guess this guy's like basic programming will be done, because I'm probably just going to do that tomorrow, to be honest with you, because all it's going to do, like we could do it now, but I don't want to, because all it's going to do is effectively the same as this dude for now, and that is just this. It's just going to passively walk around, which is finding a location, moving to the location, and fucking waiting. And then when it is aggressive towards the player, it just moves to the player, it attacks, and then it waits for a bit. And then it does this whole dealio over and over and over again. So that's what he's going to do as well, just with his own animation. I'm probably just going to do that tomorrow so that I can put him into some of the levels. And we can come back and add some more stuff to him later, because eventually I would like this guy to be an enemy that kind of flanks the player. So if we have like the player, right, everybody else just fucking moves in. What I would like this guy to do is just kind of like hang out in a circle around the player. Maybe even like actually circle the player, if I can get it to do that. That would be kind of neat. And then at a somewhat random time, just like fucking move in, attack, and move back, and keep a distance. That's kind of the idea that I want him to do eventually, but for now he's just gonna do the same thing that everybody does, I think. So yeah, see you guys next week. Good luck with everything that you guys are working on. And I will hopefully have good luck with what I'm working on, which is this fucker. And also this fucker. He's been a lot of work, man, but he's coming together fairly well. Anyway,